Hello everyone. Before I get started, I just wanted to clarify a point that I made in my previous session where I was using an example of how we're following ideas. If we might choose, what makes us a moral being is if we have ideas and we recognize that we're following our good ideas rather than our bad ideas. I really wanted to clarify that when I was watching my video over again. It's not evil ideas. An idea that's evil isn't really truly an idea. It's really something operating from the lower instinctual level. So really, I want to clarify that a moral being can identify their base, the instinctual, and then they can recognize the higher level, and then they're choosing which side, if you will, that they want to pursue. They choose, I would rather just follow my higher self rather than, follow these low-level blind urges, if you will, that are evil. And so that is what makes one an ethical individual and what makes one a moral being, as well as distinguishing between these two realms that we all humans have to face. So I hope that clarifies that point. I'm going to move on. We're on chapter 9 and we're on paragraph 33. An action is felt to be free insofar as the reasons for it spring from the ideal part of my being. Every other part of an action, irrespective of whether it is carried out under the compulsion of nature or under the obligation of a moral standard, is felt to be unfree. And 33 is summarized as follows. An action is free if it springs from the ideal part of my individual being. Every other part of an action is unfree. That's pretty straightforward, as he said. If I'm following my moral intuitions, that is an act that is free. If I'm reacting and doing an action out of fear or anger, that is not a free deed, because I'm following my base instinctual level. I'm not following my world of ideas, and so it's an unfree deed. That's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to move on to 34. Man is free insofar as he is able to obey himself in every moment of his life. A moral deed is my deed only if it can be called a free one in this sense. We have here considered what conditions are required for an intentional action to be felt as a free one. How this purely ethically understood idea of freedom comes to realization in the being of man will be shown in what follows. 34 is summarized as follows. Man is free when he is able to obey himself in every moment of his life. Therefore, a moral deed can only be a free deed. So this is just pointing out that for Steiner, moral deeds are deeds done in freedom, and it's not enough to just follow commands and whatnot. That is not free. If you're following your intuitions, that is being free, and that is what is moral. Because if you're just doing things because it's your duty, it is not free. And he goes on about that in the next paragraph, which is what I'm going to read next. So we're just going to move on to 35. Acting out of freedom does not exclude the moral laws. It includes them, but shows itself to be on a higher level than those actions which are merely dictated by such laws. Why should my action be of less service to the public good when I have done it out of love than when I have done it only because I consider serving the public good to be my duty? The mere concept of duty excludes freedom because it does not acknowledge the individual element, but demands that this be subject to a general standard. Freedom of action is conceivable only from the standpoint of ethical individualism. And 35 is summarized as follows. Acting out of freedom includes moral laws. The concept of duty excludes freedom as it ignores the individual element. So what he's saying in this paragraph, people have argued that, we have to follow moral standards and that's it, But the highest level for Steiner is to act from your individual intuitions, and doing so you can also as well follow moral laws. So you can look at rules of code of conduct, and then, you know, out of freedom you choose, maybe doing this will serve me the best, and you're still following your intuitions. And as he says, following moral laws is okay, but it is not the highest level that one can achieve as a moral being. And again, he points out the concept of duty. If you're just doing things because you feel it's your duty, that is not acting out of freedom, because you're just doing it because it's expected of you, and that is not a free deed. And what he's arguing as well is to do an act out of love, which is what intuition actions spring from, is from love. That is the highest level of morality you can achieve, which is acting from a place of love. And so acting out of love involves freedom. And so that's what he's pointing out in this paragraph. I'm going to examine the life path that we're typically being promoted to do when we're at a young age. You know, go to school, get a job, get married, have children, retire, and die. Basically, that is sort of, people can take that as a duty, and so they only go to school because they've been told that's what you're supposed to do. And then once you go to school, you get a job, and then you get married, and then you do all of these things. But if you're just doing that, it's not ethical. You're not acting out of freedom. Now, someone who chooses to follow their own intuitions, they can be guided to do the same things. They can feel this compulsion to go to school, and then maybe they'll travel, and then they feel intuitively that they need a job, and then, you know, a few years down the line, after enjoying their life, they feel intuitively they want to get married. It's completely different. These two people can have their lives and they're still doing it the same thing, but if you're doing something because you've been told to, that is not freedom. And so the second person that I give it as an example, they are the one living a more moral life, and they're living a more free life because they have chosen to follow their own intuitions rather than just doing what people tell them to do, and rather than following commands. That person who chooses to follow the beat of their own drum, if you will, is the more moral person. Just because someone is following what someone has been dictated to do does not make them an ethical person. And we can see that with a lot of people, is that, you know, they're just doing things because they think they're supposed to, rather than, you know, because they feel a love to do it. And that's what Steiner is pointing out in this paragraph. So that's all what we're going to cover for today. So keep summarizing and have a good day. Bye.